Last week, Nintendo finally started shedding some light on their Nintendo Switch Online service, something we've been waiting a long time for info on, considering the fact that it now is coming out, well, less than a week from now. And the info we got was initially pretty cool sounding, but there's a lot of fine print that's sounding a little bit rough. Now, before we start getting into some of the problems with it and things that Nintendo can improve upon, let's give some credit where it's due right away with one of the biggest strengths it has: affordability. Paid online services for gaming consoles are kind of a weird subject for some people this last decade, because some people view it as a necessary thing you have to pay for that makes sure servers are running nice and smoothly. Other people view it as an unnecessary and greedy form of price gouging. Either way, though, I think you can kind of agree with at least looking at the online service, this is one of the most fairly priced introductory-wise. Whereas for PlayStation and Xbox, you're spending at minimum $60 a year if you're doing the cheapest package possible. Switch Online is only costing $20 for a full year, which is pretty easy to do. And even when you break it down to some of the more expensive packages, like paying month to month, it ultimately boils down to only being $4 a month. And if you really want to save some money, you have the option of doing a family plan for only $35, covering 8 accounts, whether you're a family or just a group of friends joining up. So that alone is some good news. I think it's a sign that Nintendo knows they need to competitively price themselves a bit against Sony and Microsoft. But where it starts to run into some problems is, this is the first time Nintendo's really tried something like this, a paid online service that gives certain benefits, and it feels very much like this is a situation where they're trying out online services for the first time back in the mid-2000s. For instance, let's talk about one of the biggest, most looked forward to features of Nintendo Switch Online: cloud saves. One of the big problems the Switch has is the fact that there's not really any way to back up your save data at all, and everything is locked to a single console. So that a console breaks, you literally lose everything as far as your actual progress in a game goes. And with Nintendo Switch Online, we're finally getting a way to do cloud saves. Kind of. There's a couple caveats here. Now, first off, the cloud saving service has some very unclear terms about how it's handled if your subscription goes up. A lot of people are interpreting some vague wording from Nintendo as the fact that as soon as you no longer pay for online services, your save data is immediately deleted. There's some other wording in other locations on Nintendo's website where it kind of sounds like maybe there's a grace period, but it's not clear. Now, compare this to what Sony and Microsoft have done. Microsoft, cloud saves are just an automatic thing. It's not even part of a gold membership. You just have that for free, indefinitely. Sony, on the other hand, it is something you need to pay for, but if you don't pay for the service, they at least keep your cloud saves around for 6 months. Nintendo, like I said, we don't know for sure, but either way, it's sounding not as remotely strong as either of those. Now, once again, Nintendo's wording on this has been very vague, so it's possible that's going to be better than what a lot of people are fearing, but there's other aspects of the online service that's in much plainer speech that's a little more worrisome. For instance, the fact that not all games actually support cloud saves, specifically Splatoon 2 and Pokemon Let's Go. Now, the reason Nintendo is given for this is because basically these games were designed with not a lot of foresight as far as how online services and being able to do backup saves would work. So if they did support cloud saves, it would give people a very easy way to do things like duplicate Pokemon, duplicate items, trade stuff away, and then just get it back again. And while that is kind of a good reason to not do that, it raises the question of why wasn't this planned for ahead of time, especially if Nintendo Switch Online was a thing we were expecting. Because it's really rough where, especially in a competitive game where you can spend tons of hours building up a lot of stuff, that's the one thing you can't properly back up or save. That's not good. Now, along with allowing you to play games online and cloud saves, one of the other big aspects of Nintendo Switch Online is the ability to play kind of their new retro console. They're calling it Nintendo Entertainment System Nintendo Switch Online, which is quite a mouthful. Now, this works a bit differently from Nintendo's past attempts at bringing retro games to modern consoles. Instead of being a system where you're just buying individual games, as long as you're a paying member of Nintendo Switch Online, you'll be able to access a currently small library of Nintendo titles, currently numbering at 20, but they're going to be releasing more as time goes on. Kind of similar to what PlayStation does with PlayStation Now or Xbox with Game Pass, but it's all much older games. The cool side about this, though, is that kind of similar to what they did with the Nintendo Classic Editions, that does update these games to run nice and smoothly in 1080p resolution. An interesting new facet is that you will be able to actually do online play with the small handful of titles where it would actually be relevant. And I gotta admit, by far, one of the coolest aspects about it to me is that tying in with this release, they are releasing some special limited Nintendo Entertainment System controllers that act like Joy-Cons, being able to slide on the sides. You can't use them for any other games because they don't really have enough buttons, but if you're a paying member and you're playing NES games, you can use an actual NES-style controller, which I think is an awesome little touch. This to me is potentially the coolest part of what Nintendo Online could eventually be, because right now with only 20 games, It's not a lot, but they have already shown they are planning on releasing a lot of games in the near future, and hopefully down the line it could encompass something more than just NES. You know, one of the things about Nintendo, at least in the modern age, it's always been a little weird to me, is how all over the place their way of accessing retro games has been. They've done different methods, they've released standalone systems. I really want just one easy way to access a large library of Nintendo games. And if this list continues to grow at the rate they're currently doing, I think Nintendo Switch Online could be that service. And I think this would go a long way in really helping make Nintendo Switch Online seem a lot more worth it, even if they eventually upped the price a little bit as that library of games grew, because as of right now at least, yes, it is the cheapest online subscription model out of the three major systems, but what you're getting out of it is honestly a bit limited right now. The 20 games is a cool idea, but it's a small number, and some of the other functionality of it, like cloud saves, while present, don't exactly work the way that I think a lot of people would want them to work. Whereas with PlayStation and Microsoft, you're getting free games, there's all these other additional services, cloud saves are just straight up free on Microsoft. There's just, the service, you're getting what you pay for right now, but it's not quite what it should be. Now, I don't want to just have this entire video be, oh no, everything's awful, Nintendo's messing up online and you shouldn't buy it. No, look, it's a rough start, but I think that, especially at the current lower price point, it's something that's at least worth getting into right now. And there's just areas that Nintendo could really, work on, whether that's increasing the number of games available for the NES console or adding other platforms down the line, improving and fixing how cloud saves work, and let's not even start on the still continuing issue of having to use a separate phone for online chat. It's a start right now, but Nintendo can do better.